Welcome to the First in Three series, supporting the Leadership Forum Summit. This year is called Leading in the Age of Intelligence, which is taking place July 8th through the 10th, where we're going to explore what it really means to lead in a world shaped by many different kinds of intelligence. So this series is really designed to explore those ideas, those tensions, and real-world leadership challenges that we're going to be working through together during the summit. So for more on the summit, if you are interested, go to leadershipforumcommunity.org. And I am Rosie Corvo. I'm the Managing Director of UpSpiral Leadership, which is a human-centered leadership, organizational design, and coaching consultancy. And I'll be your host and facilitator today. So today's guests with me are Bill Jensen and Malisha Awunor, which are two of 5 co-authors of the book, Humanity, Leading the Powershift, Keeping Humans in the Future of Work. So welcome, both of you. So Bill is the CEO of the Jensen Group and has spent decades rethinking how work gets done. And Malisha is a technology for good strategist who advises boards and executive teams on the intersection of AI, organizational design, and human value at work. Together, they're going to bring a really powerful perspective on what's changing and what's at stake. So together, we're going to explore the core themes of the summit, which is shifting nature of power and agency and leadership in the AI era. This conversation is the first part, or the starting point, of the 3-part series. This part is really about awareness. What's at stake? I actually thought about it as the wake-up call. We're going to go into how we intentionally design work with AI, and ultimately, what does this really ask of us, of leaders? So before we get going, I'd love to start by asking you guys a couple of questions. And what brought really the 5 of you, because there's 5 authors, to write this book, and what was your intention? Let's start there.
How did we come together? Thank you. We were part of a collective that were brought together by a gentleman called Anish from India. And this was over 14 months ago. About 24 of us on this collective. And towards the end of last year, the idea of the book came up. And Bill has been our key steward and has been the primary author around pulling together, what does this mean for us? So we've had the Industrial Revolution. We're now going through a different kind of revolution. And what does this mean for humanity? Bill very eloquently put together the Bill of Rights around aspects like agency. And where I was particularly passionate about was the human operating system side of things. So it was about creating a framework, because everybody seems to think that AI is the silver bullet that's going to make everything nice and happy and very profitable, without actually taking time to understand what it actually means for us as humans, because we are transitioning in terms of ways of work. So if you look at the number of new jobs that will be available versus the jobs that will be redundant, it's all in transition. What this framework does is provides a guide for leaders to manage this transition. So that's at a very high level. But I think at the heart of what we're trying to do is to create impact. And more importantly, that we don't lose our humanity in what we're trying to do in adopting technology. Bill, is that about right?
Perfect.
What would you add to that, Bill? What do you believe the intention was?
Well, I'll expose the inner workings of a collective that we were of 2 minds. As a bunch of humanists, it must be human-centered. It must, make the case for, greater humanity. On the other side, well, what about, it's not going to happen without business leaders adopting this. So we went back and forth, and we ended up with a 2-part structure. So as Malisha said a moment ago, the Bill of Human Rights for the AI era, 10 rights that go beyond what we normally think of as human rights. Yes, you deserve a fair wage. Yes, or there should be no discrimination. Those kind of rights are already locked in. But there are 10 others that are specific to the AI era. So that's part one. Part two is the human capital operating system. How would leaders build these rights into their infrastructures, into their structures, into their values, into their culture? So, part one is almost a manifesto for the human rights. Part two is a how to book, and we put them together.
Excellent. I thought that was so clear, so compelling. And then the second half of the book obviously is more about that implementation. But I want to get into a little bit about the level of awareness. So, for those that have read the book, what would you say? What was the ahas or those moments that you can recall the feedback that you've been given on the book so far?
Well, we wrote the book to ensure that you, not just the algorithms, have a future in the future of work. It is very focused on every individual out there, leader or individual contributor. The one line in the book that's in the introduction, everybody gloms onto immediately. It's AI is a power shift, not a task shift. And that comes through in every review, everybody we've talked to, that hits them between the eyes because most everybody is looking at AI. Is it's going to change how we take notes, how we collaborate? It's all about the tasks. And companies are actually cutting out people because tasks can now be automated. But we said, no, it's a power shift. And what we mean by that is take a moment to ask yourself a question. What happens when your company onboards digital teammates who can outthink you, who can outperform you, and not just you, whoever you are in the organization, they can outthink and outperform everybody in the C-suite. What happens to the role of human beings? So instead of just rethinking the tasks and how is AI going to replace jobs or how is AI going to replace tasks, it's raises a much larger question of what is the role of human beings
Mhm.
at work now? And we need to answer that. And it really shifts how we think about governance, power, control, systems, structures, all of those things.
Malisha, what would you say? What was your friends and family's aha moments?
So ours was more around, we've been talking about this in a different environment. It's now just amplified with AI. So if we look at things like agency, mental health since COVID has had a huge impact on not just our companies, but our communities as well. And what this did was actually bring it to light in a way that is integrated. I keep going back to AI is not the silver bullet. And for me, it's about how do you build this collaborative intelligence? And that is exactly what the rights do is, often we think people are, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but educated enough to understand something like agency,
Yeah.
educated enough to understand psychological safety. And what this does is actually give them the tools to understand that these are the rights that I can operate within. From a
Yeah.
leadership perspective, is that it's not just about surveillance. And I use that word very carefully because I've seen it come up over and over in relation to AI. But it's actually how do you take your people along? It's less about automation for me and more about augmentation. And that is both from a leader perspective and an employee perspective. So that was the one part. The other part was the bias that is inherent in a lot of the tools that we're using.
Yeah.
And what are we actually going to do about it? So those were the 2 points from my side.
Yeah. I must admit, I found myself thinking about, wow, these large language models were built to simply do translations. And now we see people putting in all sorts of prompts. And what you're really seeing is these echoes. So the fact that you see, these biases, they're really just reflecting some of our own biases that we have.
Yes.
And it's almost like, to some degree, we've spent an awful lot of time researching the power of having diverse thought in the workplace. And there is some danger, obviously, of, depending on how you utilize AI, it could absolutely reduce that level of innovation, that diversity. So Bill had asked me to put in the book into AI and figure out where we at UpSpiral Leadership, where we would see some synergies. And as I was doing that, there is golden aspects of this where we go in and we do organizational design. The 10 Bill of Rights are just literally magical for us to be able to take that, what we do, and it's going to level up our ability to be able to help our clients. So I absolutely thank you for that. I decided to ask ChatGPT what it thought of the book. Is this really a leadership awareness gap, a system design problem, a pressure or incentive issue about markets, performance, and speed, or something more human like avoiding hard trade-offs?
Yes, all of the above.
Right.
So I'll simplify it down to two dynamics. What happened in the digital revolution? Companies were always trying to enhance how the company performed. That's been since the Industrial Revolution. But with the digital revolution, what happened was the more and more computers that were built into the structures of how we work and how we have to push this button or use this app or answer this question before we can do anything. What happened was slowly companies started building technology infrastructures that were more and more corporate centered. So what's happened over the last 20 years is the systems and structures have been solely focused on the company's agency and unintentionally, but still it's happening, reduced personal agency. The more we can use computers to mandate your behaviors, the better. We get things more consistent. The company has designed to maximize use of you. So that is what we're calling structural violence. So your burnout, your exhaustion is not your fault. It's by design. It's a feature, not a bug of the system. So one of the things we talk about, the solutions in the second half of the book, is called the Taijitu principle. And that's Chinese for what we call yin and yang. And basically, we need to design structures that are balanced equally on workforce needs and company needs. Neither is more important. The company has a right to make money, has a right to make profits. We're not going to take away from that. But we've got to stop the burning out and churning through people in order to create those things.
Yeah.
So, two simple answers to your very complicated question. One half is way too much corporate centeredness. We have to shift that. We need leaders to be aware of it. We need everybody who builds these systems to be aware of it. We need them following Taijitu principles. The other half goes to GPT's realization we are giving up our agency totally. And why? We are now living in the attention economy.
Mm.
It's so much easier to check a box, get it done, even if it gives up my energy. My reaction time is 3 to 5 seconds, just boom, 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 get it out. And that way I don't think about it. I don't have to think about it. Okay, the company designed it this way. What's happening is we are giving up our agency bit by bit. So the first half of the book says, yo, wake up. Even if your company is not going to do anything about this, you should be seeking these rights. You deserve these rights. The first right is to create and control your own destiny. Most of us are unknowingly surrendering that when we sign up to be an employee. So the two halves are both true. We
Yeah.
need the workforce to wake up and demand more, bottom up pressure, and we need the senior leaders to realize they can't just churn through the human population for a profit.
Yeah. Malisha, anything you would add?
Bill put it very eloquently. And we always look at this from an either or perspective. It has to be this or it has to be that. If we look at the definition of an EVP, right, it's where the needs of the business meet the needs of the individual. But that very rarely is honored because it's all about a list of values stuck on a wall rather than true benefit. And I used this word yesterday, is that it's a symbiotic relationship. In everything, no matter what it is in this world, has an equal positive, has an equal and opposite negative, right? It's physics.
Yep.
Why can't we apply those same principles to Bill's comment in the way in which we design things? The younger generation coming in are not like the boomers and are not like the X's and are not like the millennials, right? Their needs are fundamentally different. They are very aware of their agency, the language that they use. I've got teenagers who talk, and I'm like, where did you even learn those things from? So they are much more attuned to understanding self, and they work in order to earn a living. They don't live to work, right? So
Right.
all of those things will eventually come to a head. And to Bill's point, why can't the two coexist?
So I love that. And if I was watching or listening to this right now, and I was in the process of putting AI into my organization in whatever capacity, how would I know whether I have made this mistake? How would you simply advise the listeners to go back and do a quick check? What questions should they really ask themselves at this point that would help them say, boy, they're bringing up a great point, but how do I know if I'm already down that road?
So to me, it's a readiness post the implementation, but I think it's never too late. Understand your intention. If it's purely around bottom line, high productivity, burnout is not an issue for you in terms of priorities. If you believe that's your values, it's not sustainable in any organization.
Yeah.
There are 10 practices in building out the human capital operating system. Every single one of those chapters has a here's what you should do first. Throughout human history, we have never ever had to think about work without the human being involved. Even in the Industrial Revolution, when we built steam engines and other things, there was always a human being running the steam engine or doing something. We are now taking human beings out of the equation. We now have organizations that have as many AI agents and building agentic systems as we have literal employees. So the first question needs to be backed up to get away from the technology. If technology can do this, this, and this, and this, and it's smarter than us, and it's faster than us, what is the work for a human being? What do we want and need human beings to do? AI can search for breast cancer faster than any doctor ever can and find it. Okay, well, that's great. That's great use of that tool. So, what is left of the diagnosticians or the doctors? What is their role in this? And what I have found it to be, AI is the mean, it's the average. It is not the excellent level. It's taking all the stuff that's out there and saying, here's the average of what I've heard from the world. We need people who can spar with and challenge the AI agent to say, no, that's not good enough. I need it more creative. I need it. So we talk about 7 superpower skills. One of the 7 superpower skills is creativity and curiosity and imagination. We need humans involved to be pushing things further and not just accepting the feedback that we get from AI. So coming back to the beginning, the first thing everybody needs to look at is what is the role for human beings in our company?
Yeah. When I think about the answer to the question, how do I know if I'm already down that road, is what was your intention versus what is your impact? And I think if you can answer that truthfully, you may actually be able to say, yes, I got the efficiency, but I'm also seeing less innovation. I'm seeing burnout. I'm seeing high turnover. So my question is, what was your real cost of implementing AI? That's where it brought me to. And I also started thinking about, we have so many great examples of how you use these large language models, honestly, or algorithms, I would say, that we have done for decades. So that was at least my thoughts.
It's amazing how often the solutions we need to bring about are commonsensical, rooted in basics. Stephen Covey's start with the end in mind. The basic things always keep coming up, but we keep ignoring them. We keep shooting ourselves in the foot constantly.
Absolutely. So we've covered quite a bit. Is there any other of the 10 Bill of Rights that you would like to highlight for the listeners? Any one of them that particularly has really stuck with you personally? Is there one or two of them that you'd like to highlight?
Well, I'll cover two on risk and reward, or good and bad. What I mentioned earlier with structural violence, that falls under the one of psychological safety and mental health. It's a right to psychological safety and mental health, comma, by design. Your health must be designed into the company's systems. So that's the preventing the bad side. The good side is the final one. You have a right to share in the value that AI creates from your work. You're not just working on a company product anymore. AI is sucking out of you your sense of humor, your passion, your desire, the way you think, and it's building that into the company products. So you have a right to whatever value that AI is extracting from you. That can come in a 4-day work week, better compensation, more benefits, stock options from the company that can come in all different kinds of forms. But the point is, we're so worried about being fired by AI. We need to be standing up for our rights, saying, not only shouldn't you be firing me, you should be paying me and rewarding me differently.
Right, right. Good point. Alicia, your couple
For
of
me,
favorites?
the second one is one that I feel very strongly about, and that is because inherently is the bias that comes through, right? Very closely to that is the ability to be able to fix those mistakes. So I believe there is a lot of education that's required. I would hate for anyone to think that the first right is purely around an internal or external locus of control. That's not it, right? Understanding your agency and then being able to exercise that insofar as I do want to know why I was not considered for this role. Applicant tracking systems to me is like it's a time bomb waiting to happen, right? And I think a lot of organizations don't realize that because it's about efficiency, so that one is important to me, and the ability to fix it. People blindly do things and don't realize how much they've exposed, how much they say, how much that is out there and available to people who don't have the best of intentions. So for me, the education and awareness is so, so critical. But those are the three that resonate with me.
Excellent. So if someone leaves this conversation remembering one thing, what is it that you most want them to start thinking about differently?
Technology is purely an enabler, and we shouldn't fall so blindly for everything that comes up, whether it's through GPT or any other algorithm that decides it. Understand where you sit in all of this. embrace the change that's coming. And the point around agency, it's within your control. So that would be it.
And the one thing I would want people to think about, I've spent 40 years helping people go through change. We can only understand something through the lens of something we already know. So let me compare AI to where social media has taken us. Social media is a tool. It was put out there with the best intentions. It is horrifying right now. It is creating more division than we can possibly imagine. Social media amplifies our human nature. So if we are prone to cluster in groups, in tribes that love us but hate them, it's going to amplify that and make it worse. AI does the exact same thing. It takes the best of us and the worst of us, and it amplifies it, both in sociology and psychology terms, but also in leadership and company employee terms. It is going to amplify the brilliance of your leaders' plans and the utter stupidity and selfishness of company greed, capitalism. It's going to amplify it.
Yeah.
So we need to arm ourselves to be prepared to build towards the best and understand we have a role in preventing the worst.
Yeah. And I am personally a huge advocate of technology, a huge advocate of AI, but I'm more a massive advocate of humanity. And I think that make sure that you are in balance and look in the mirror and ask yourself, is this right? If I pull on this thread, when I decide to do this particular project, if I really think through this all the way, let me go check and see against these 10 bills. Can I answer these questions honestly and look myself in the mirror and say, yeah, I've done the right thing. I haven't given up agency. My employees have transparency. They can see what I'm deciding about them. Yes, they have the ability to correct what is being said about them. Yes, they're not being overloaded. I am giving them more skills as they're giving up parts that absolutely should be automated. And yes, I'm fairly compensating them for it. And I'm continuing to create innovation. And that's what I would say to the leaders that are listening to this right now.
So I want to echo everything Rosie just said and add one more thing: sense of urgency.
Yes.
In the book, we talk about 5 to 8 years. That is the maximum amount of time you have to have this discussion. Why is that? Because what's happening right now is it's not just GPT analyzing a book. Companies are building AI native structures. We're not there yet, but within 5 to 8 years, depending on your industry, your company, within 5 to 8 years, the competitive baseline foundation is your entire company operating system AI native? So I want to be clear with all our viewers and listeners. This is not just some philosophical debate that we can walk away from and say, oh, that was nice, but I don't have to do anything about it. If you're 35, before you are 40, you are going to be operating in an AI native company. You have precious few years to act on everything we've been talking about.
So thank you both so much. This has been a great conversation. And I love it how you both have offered so many new ways for the viewers and listeners to think about how they should be consciously putting in the value of AI with such a high human touch. If I was listening to this right now or watching, I would definitely be saying, where can I get a copy of this book? So, Bill, where can they get a copy right now?
First, plugging the summit. Sign up for the Leadership Forum now. You will get a copy for free, the final manuscript, but it's being going through production right now. It will be out mid to late June on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, everywhere else. And the title is Humanity, with a big A and a big I in the middle of it.
Oh, wonderful. So if you're signing up for the Leadership Summit, we would absolutely love for you to join us. And it is happening again July 8th through 2026. And everybody that attends will get a copy of this. For more information about this podcast series and the summit, go to 2026.leadershipforumcommunity.org. And I want to thank everybody today for listening and for watching.